You should make a kior of copper. Rashi is going to tell us what a kior is. You should make a kior of copper. The kanon nechoshes, and the kior has to have a base made of copper. To wash. And asato also bein ol moed ubein hamizbeach has to be between the tent and the altar. And asata shamamayim, you're going to put water in there. So you have a kior. Excuse me. A kior, which is something that holds water, and it's for the purpose of washing. Rashi says, kior kamin dud gedola. It's a large kettle. Velo dadim, and the large kettle has spigots. Hamarikim b'fiam mayim, and the spigots have spouts. They spout water at their openings. Now, in the time of Solomon, Shlomo Melech, he built a big bowl that was a big shore. You remember what that was called, Rabbi Yosef? The shore that the water came out from. Remember that, Rabbi Yosef?
Yam.
The Yam HaMelech. So he built a big
Yam Shel Shlomo.
Yam Shel Shlomo. It was called the Yam Shel Shlomo. This big ox, but here in the Mishkan was just a small core. It was just a small kior. V'chano, and it had a pedestal. Kitar gumo uvesisa, and its base. Moshav metukan lakior, is a seat fashioned for the kior. L'rachza, for washing. Rashi says musav al kior. This was referring to the basin. So the basin was for washing. So then yes. Who had a question there? Somebody had a question. Okay, I don't know. Jerry, yes.
If they have holes in it, it's like a bathtub with no with the drain hole unstopped, so it never holds any water for washing hands and feet.
No, presumably that there was a stoppage, that they had a plug.
Oh.
Presumably there was a plug on it. I don't have any drawings of it in front of me, but I'm sure Rabbi Yosef could easily pull some up, which show that there were spigots. That's what Rashi was saying, that the spigots that the water would come out from when they wanted to turn on the faucet.
Okay.
The rachza for washing, that was okay. Yes, Jerry.
No. I've lowered. Okay.
Uveina mizbeach, and the water was for washing between the altar and the mizbeach, between Ol Moed and the mizbeach. Rashi says, which mizbeach is it referring to? Rashi says mizbeach ha'olah. This was the mizbeach of the olah. What's the mizbeach of the olah? There were two altars. There was a golden altar and this copper altar, or the mizbeach ha'olah has several names to it. It's called the Mizbeach of the Oah. That's where the daily sacrifices were made on. It's also sometimes called the Mizbeach of the earth, the altar of the earth, because it was filled with earth. It's sometimes called the Mizbeach of copper, because it was copper plated. But that's the altar that was in the courtyard. It's opposed to the golden altar, which was the altar that was inside the temple, which was primarily used for the Ketoret, except for certain select offerings on Yom Kippur and also on some other very, very rare occasions. So between the Mizbeach HaOlah, about which is written, Shilufnei Petach Mishkan Ol Moed, which is in front of the entrance into the Ol Moed. So the basin was not directly in front of the Mishkan, but it was drawn away a little bit. It was standing near the space between the Mizbeach and the Mishkan. So it did not really interrupt between the altar and the Mishkan's entrance. Because it says that the Mizbeach Olah, Mizbeach Olah, some Pesach Mishkan Ol Moed, the Mizbeach Olah was supposed to be at the entrance to the tent, meaning to say the Mizbeach needed to be with Lefnei Ol Moed. But the basin itself was not in front of the Ol Moed. So therefore the basin was just a little bit off. Ketzad. Rashi explains Mashuch Kima Kapei Adarom. It was a little bit towards the south. A little bit towards the south. That's how Rashi reconciles the verses. Kach Shnuya Bezvachim. This is how it's taught in Tractate Zvachim. So the Mizbeach there was a space between the Mizbeach and the entrance into the Or Moed, and a little bit towards the south was the Kior, and the Kior was in between, but was not blocking it. That's the basic point. And Aaron and his sons would wash their hands and their feet from it. Rashi says the trick here was they would wash their hands and feet at the same time, because it says it could have said Yedehem v'Raglehem, but the word es means to say that they do it at the same time. Okay. Ketzad, how do we do this? Ketzad kiddush yadayim v'raglayim. Meiniach yado hayamanit al gab be'raglo hayamanit. He would put his right hand on his right foot, the other hasmelit al gab be'raglo hasmelit, and his left foot on top of his left foot in the kaddish, and he would wash them. Well, who would turn on the water then? If he's doing that, who's turning on the water? Because he would turn on the water.
The Levites, like today, no?
Presumably but the water would already be in there. The water must have been in the basin.
Yeah, but I'm saying the Levites would do the service.
Does it say that anywhere? Where do you get that from?
It doesn't say a lot of things, because, for example, you said that the Yor was between the altar and the Mishkan. You couldn't approach the altar without washing your hands first. So
I don't know. I want to know.
There's a lot of details that seem to be missing here.
I'm not saying you're not correct. I just want to see a source for that. Okay, so then, because it doesn't say it in Rashi here. So then it states, when they came to the temple, they would wash their hands so they don't die. Or when they came close to the altar, to serve, so they would basically have to wash themselves before two things, either before they entered into the Ol Moed or before they came close to the altar. That's not a vegan place. Yes, Jerry, ask your question.
Yes, when today when the Kohanim go for Duchenin, they take off their shoes.
Right.
Where does that? Is that a Torah commandment, or is that sort of symbolic of washing the feet?
No, it comes from the idea, I believe, that when the Kohen served in the temple, he was not allowed to wear shoes.
Yes.
So Moshe also, when he comes close, but in the temple, the Kohanim were not allowed to wear shoes.
But anyway, there's a Shechina, you can't.
Yeah, right. But also,
that's thick skin, whatever.
Right.
Hide or it's a tree.
Yeah. So now the Torah says, okay, right, and Rameir is saying that it goes back to Moshe before he goes to the burning bush, he took off his shoes.
He's told to take.
He's told to take off his shoes. So the verse tells us the next verse. The verse tells us, why would they come to the temple? Why would they go to the temple every day? Well, first of all, they were going to bring the incense in the morning and the night. That's one reason they would come in. Or to sprinkle the blood of the bull of the Kohen Gadol and the goats of the idolatry. So if the Kohen Gadol made a mistake, or if they worshipped idolatry, that God forbid, so then they would have to, if the community worshipped idolatry, then they would have to sprinkle blood on the altar. on the golden altar. That's the reason why they would enter in. The other reason is to burn the incense. Rashi does not tell us another reason. There's something that's missing from Rashi. They would have to go in to light the menorah and to clean out the menorah. Why doesn't Rashi mention that? That's a deep question I have on Rashi. Maybe Rabbi Yosef Kukin Sefaria on the commentaries on Rashi, the Siftei Chachamim or the Mizrahi, maybe they tell us, why doesn't Rashi mention the menorah? That's another reason why you would go into the temple every day. So that you do not die. But if you went in without washing your hands, you would die. The Torah states general terms. And from the negative, you learn the positive. To the altar, the outer altar. So when it mentions there's no time you go into the Ol Moed unless it refers to the service where they did in the courtyard. Okay. Verse 21. Did you find anything on that, Rabbi Yosef? No? Okay. And they should wash their hands and their legs so they don't die. They wash their hands and legs so they don't die. It'll be a law for them and for his descendant for all generations. Rashi says, if you served in the temple but you didn't wash your hands first and your legs, you would die. The first time it mentions death, that was somebody who entered into the sanctuary, but now it talks about somebody who served in the temple, who served on the altar without washing first. And now we're going to go up to the spices. Verse 22, chapter 3, verse 22. God spoke to Moses. Take for yourselves a besamim rosh, a prime spices, mar deror, 500 of mar deror. Rashi tell us what mar deror is. It's like myrrh. 500 kinman bosem. 500 of kinman bosem. Sounds a little like cannabis. Some say. Seriously. Kinon bosem. Kinman bosem. No, the next one is cannabis. Oh, it took you to shuk. That is one. Yeah, that's not Asian. Hold on. Yeah, that's not what we. Okay, Kuneh Bosem, 50 and the cannabis is 250. So just want to say that. So this is we're going to get into the spices, and so some say the Kuneh Bosem sounds like cannabis. So some say cannabis was included. Most don't agree with that, but it does sound like cannabis. Kuneh Bosem. But the
Even
other,
if it's true, you're not allowed to have personal consumption. It's only for the altar. You're supposed to leave the second after you put it on the gechalim, right? So Hashem doesn't want you to get high.
No, you're smelling it. You're smelling it.
But you're not allowed to. You're not, well.
No, I mean, they would smell it. They would put it on, it would be in the altar. But anyway, the point is that the point I was going to make was not about the Kuneh Bosem, but about the Besamim Rosh. There was a person who wrote, he said they published in the 19th century these chuvos of the late 19th century, these chuvos called of the Rosh. He found the Rosh, Rabbeinu Asher, and he called them the Besamim Rosh. And there's some brilliant chuvos and a lot of, maybe it was in the early 20th century. So look it up exactly when. And then many scholars it was in 20th century, not the 19th century, 20th century. And then the scholars argued that it was a forgery, that he made an entire collection of responsa of the Rosh. He made them up. So people argued that it was a forgery, but then my teacher, Dr. Chaim Soloveitchik, said, no, many of those responsa read like the Rosh could have written them. But the consensus amongst the scholars is that it's a forgery. Okay, let's look at the Rashi. Besamim Rosh, Chashuvim. These are very good spices. Kinman Bosem, cinnamon. Fisha Kinmon, Kripas Etzu. Cinnamon is the bark of a tree. Yeshu tov v'yesh bo reach tov v'tam. It is good and has a good fragrance and a good taste. V'yesha inu el ka'es, and there's that which is only like wood. Tachat shurach amar kinman bosem min atov. It's good cinnamon from the good. All right, machatzito chamishim u'matayim. Half of it is 250. Machatzita va'atote chamishim u'matayim. Half of that is 250. Nimtzakuo chamesh meot k'mo shiur mar deror. All of it becomes 500, like the type of the myrrh. Imking lama nemer bo chatzain. Why does it say halves? To teach us avil chatzin, to bring it by halves. Our boat bo shteachros, to add it to two small amounts to tip the scales. She'ein shokun ayin ba'ayin, v'kach shenir b'krusis, because they don't weigh it exactly. So basically, we're bringing half of 200, half of 500. So Rashi says half of that shall be 250. So all of it is 500. So why does it say it halves? To teach us, you have to bring it by halves. Two weighings were used for the 500 shkalim of cinnamon. Half was weighed at each time. So this amounted to a little bit more than if it had all been weighed at once, because they'd add a bit to tip the scales each time they weighed. So this addition occurred twice when it was weighed by halves. Okay, so it's a little bit more than 500. Kaneh bosem, kana shal bosem, a cane of a spice. Some canes are not spice, smell well. Hutrach kaneh bosem. 250, sach mishkal kulo. That's the total weight of it. Unlike the cinnamon, where Rashi says the 250 was really 500, here it was really only 250. Vikida 500 b'shekal kodesh v'shemen zayitin. And kida, they had to give 500, a weight of 500, and shemen zayitin. And a hint of olive oil. What's the kida? Rashi says Shem Shorish Esav is the name of the root of an herb. B'lashon chachamim kitsia. In the language of the sages, it's called kitsia, cassia. Okay. Hin shnei masar ugin, 12 ugin. V'nechel kubo chachmei Yisrael. The sages of Israel argued. V'meir omer bo shalku es ha'ikarim. They boiled the roots. Amar Rabbi Yehuda. So they took this and they boiled it in this olive oil. So they boiled all the roots of these spices in this olive oil. Rameir says they boiled the roots, and Rabbi Yehuda says there's not even enough oil with which to smear the roots, much less boil them. Means say you have a lot of roots here, 500 shkalim, and you're going to boil everything. You have the 500 of the cinnamon bosim, 250 of the kaneh bosem, and then 500 of the kida, and you're going to boil it in 12 hin of oil, which is 12 lugin. It's not enough to even smear them all. How are you going to boil it all? That's what Rashi was asking. So basically, so first what they did is they soaked the spices in water so they don't absorb the oil. And so then he would sprinkle the oil on them until it absorbed the scent, and then he wiped the oil off the roots. Okay, verse 25. And they made Yisham. What are you doing from all this mixture? Somebody said, "Oh, that Rabbi Yosef was saying, oh, it's the spice," but it's not correct. This was not the incense. This was not the incense, Rabbi Yosef. Here we're saying this was the anointing oil that they used to make a fragrant oil. And you shall make shemen mishla kodesh rokach merkachat masei rokach shemen mishla kodesh yeh. You shall make an oil of a sacred anointment, a blend of mixture, the work of a spice blender. Shall be oil of a sacred anointment. Rashi says, Rokach Shem Nevaru, it's a noun. Okay, and Rashi says we prove this from the Tam, from the Trop. Shulamala. It's on the first syllable. That's what it says. Rokach. That teaches us it's a noun. Vario kamo rokach rega. Okay. Rashi says rokach hasoy al yedei amanut taroves. A blend which was made through the craft of the mixture. Maaseh rokach shem ha'umam badavar. So what did they do? But they soaked it in water, and then we said that what did they do? They then brushed it with oil. But I don't know what he was exactly pouring from these roots. The roots were soaked in water, but how are you going to get a perfume? I guess he would just like throw it from the roots. It would make this perfume in the water. So basically what happened was, it seems to me like what they were doing is they're soaking these herbs and these spices in water. And then they poured the oil on them. And then afterwards, they wiped the oil off the roots.
They slow cook, it says they simmer. Get the water gets simmered, evaporates, and what's left behind is the olive oil infused.
With what? With
With all
this?
the perfumery.
Yeah, but that's not what Rashi says.
Rashi says basically.
No, Rashi
Well,
said,
that's what you
no,
know,
no. Who are you reading from?
Rashi says repeatedly.
Rashi says, first they soaked the spices in water, then he poured the oil on them until it absorbed the scent,
Right.
and then he wiped the oil off the roots.
Yeah, but you have to get rid of the water. Water and oil don't mix. You have to have, nobody uses water
Yeah, I'm not-
mixture and perfumery.
Yeah, I don't know exactly.
It's essence.
Okay, I'm not, probably if I saw it, I'd understand. Okay, verse 26 tells us, you're supposed to use this oil to anoint the tent and the ark. Rashi says, we had this Rashi earlier, all the anointings look like a kai. Except when they anointed the king, which was in the shape of a crown. So when they poured the oil on, it was like the Greek letter kai, except the king, that the oil was placed upon him like a crown. What else were they supposed to anoint? The table, its utensils, the menorah and its utensils, and the altar of the incense. And the altar of the olah, all its utensils, and the kior and its base. So basically, everything was anointed, all the utensils. All the utensils were anointed. Do you have a question, Deborah?
No, I was interested in your question about Rashi and the menorah, so I have some information when you want it, if you want it.
What's your,
Well,
about why Rashi doesn't say that they would go into light the menorah? That was my question.
he details it in Truma. And so there's some suggestion that he's not talking about it in Ki Tisah because he already
mentioned it.
mentioned it.
Okay, fine, that's a good answer. Do we
And
accept?
there's a detailed comment. I'm reading the detailed commentary from Truma. It's really cool.
Okay, what do you read? What do you
Well,
find?
it's a lot.
Okay. All right, so we'll post it in the
The
chat.
the difference between the ark and the menorah, the ark being made of components and the menorah being of one piece is central to Rashi's commentary.
Gotcha. And verse 29, we'll do this pasuk. The Kiddush Osam, you shall sanctify them. V'ayu kodesh kodashim. Once you sanctify them, then they're holy of holies. Whatever touches them will be consecrated. What does that mean? Rashi says, once they pour the oil on these utensils, they become holy of holies. What does that mean? Whoever touches them, whatever is fit for use in a klisharis, if you have a utensil that was sanctified, once you pour something in it, it becomes sanctified to the temple. And if it goes out of the temple or if it's left overnight, it becomes defiled. And if somebody was immersed in the mikvah that day and is waiting for nightfall, touches it, it becomes defiled. And once it's been in the sink, in these utensils, cannot be redeemed to become unconsecrated. And something that was not supposed to go in them does not become consecrated. Mishnah Shlema Eitzel Mizbach Eitzel Mizbeach. So it says earlier, whoever touches the altar will be sanctified. Rashi is saying, why are these verses taught here? Because just like anything that touches the altar is consecrated, also anything that goes into these utensils. So I might think whether it's appropriate or inappropriate. So the verse, so okay, I see you have a question, Jerry.
Yes, about a person becoming holy, touching one of these vessels. How long does this period of holiness exist? One day?
So Rashi qualifies it that it's only something that is able to be consecrated to the temple. Let's say like flour or water. If that went into the utensil, then it became holy. But if a person touches it, the person does not become holy, so to speak.
But that's what the verse says.
Right, Rashi qualifies them and explains it. That's why we were in the Rashi, to understand what the verse means.
Rashi changes what, who to what, right?
Exactly.
Wow.
All right, we'll stop here. I just want to remind everybody that tomorrow it's at 5:15.